The doorbell rang just after dusk. I wasn't expecting anyone. My son and his wife had gone on a trip, leaving my grandson in their care plans. But instead of a call, instead of arrangements, he stood there, alone. He didn't say a word at first, just stared, small fists clenched at his sides, eyes too heavy for his age. Finally, in a voice that barely rose above the night air, he said, "Grandpa, I need to tell you something." I leaned closer. My chest tightened, an old soldier's instinct kicking in. His next words left me trembling. He told me things a child should never know. Whispers about nights when his father was gone, about his stepmother's friends who visited, about words she forced him to repeat, lies she fed him, punishments she dealt when he resisted. My grandson's eyes searched mine, begging me to believe him. I saw bruises along his wrist, a faint mark across his collarbone. I forced my hands to stay still, my face calm. But inside, the storm was already rising. When I tucked him into the spare bed, I sat in the dark for hours. I thought of my son, working, traveling, building a life he thought was whole, blind to what happened behind closed doors, blind to the woman he trusted. My daughter-in-law's smile had always been too polished, her laughter too rehearsed. I dismissed it. I wanted to believe she was good for him. But now the image of her laughter twisted with my grandson's trembling confession. Betrayal wasn't new to me, but this was different. This was blood, and nobody lays a hand on my blood. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I moved quietly, methodically. I photographed the bruises when my grandson slept. I copied call logs from the home phone. I went through drawers when she wasn't around, bank slips, strange receipts, motel bookings under other names. Her life unfolded piece by piece, like a map of rot. She had more than one lover, more than one secret, and behind the polished exterior, she was draining my son's accounts dry. Every smile she gave him was bought with another man's touch. Every promise was layered in deceit. I waited, I documented, I prepared. And all the while I played the role of doting father-in-law, smiled at her over coffee, nodded at her meaningless chatter, pretended not to notice the faint scent of cologne that didn't belong to my son. Patience is a weapon, and I sharpened it daily. The breaking point came with a DNA test. My grandson asked me once, softly, if his father was truly his father. The fear in his voice told me enough. I swabbed, I sent it in, and I waited. When the results arrived, I read them alone at the kitchen table. Negative. Not my son's child. The air left the room. My grandson, the boy I loved as my own blood, was the product of her betrayal. That night, I invited her over while my son was away. She came, smug as ever, thinking I wanted to talk. I slid the papers across the table, watched her eyes widen as she read. She stammered, cried, reached for me with shaking hands. I stayed still, cold. You lied to my son. You stole 10 years of his life, and you hurt that boy. She collapsed against the chair, her face breaking under the weight of truth. I didn't scream. I didn't strike her. I simply stood and placed 2 envelopes on the table. One for my son, filled with the DNA results, the photographs, the bank slips. The other for the authorities. Her face drained of color. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I looked at her the way you look at something already dead. I already have. Her lips parted in horror, but no sound came. The polished mask she'd worn for years crumbled. She was nothing but a liar, cornered by her own game. I left her there, staring at the wreckage of her lies, knowing she would spend every day waiting for the knock at the door. Later, I stood at my grandson's bedside. He stirred, eyes half open. "Am I safe now?" he whispered. I brushed his hair back, my voice steady. "Yes, you're safe." He drifted back to sleep. I sat in the dark, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. Betrayal burns, but silence burns longer. She would learn that now. I had taught her the cost of deception without lifting a finger. The truth was the weapon, and I was done watching my family bleed. When dawn came, I poured myself black coffee, steady as stone. The war was over, and I had won it without a single shot.